Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the lecture 3.3. Now we have learned the basics of form and how they send data. Now let's move into something more practical, which is the widgets themselves. Widgets are the interactive components inside a form that lets user actually provide input. These can be text boxes, password fields, radio buttons, checkbox, drop-down menus, and more. Each widget type gives users a different way to interact with the form depending on the kind of data we need. In this section, we are going to explore the most common form widget one by one. You will see how they are written in HTML, how they look in the browser, and how they behave when the form is submitted. So by the end, you should know which widget to use for which situation. Let's start with one of the most familiar widgets, the checkbox. A checkbox is created using the input element with the type attribute set to the checkbox. It allows user to either check or uncheck an option, meaning they can select multiple values in a form if needed. We also have the checked attribute, which makes the checkbox appear selected by default when the page loads. This is really useful if you want to suggest a common choice to the user. Now, this brings us to the concept of Boolean attribute. A Boolean attribute doesn't need a value assigned to it, just having it present means true, and if it is not there, then it's false. For example, if you write checked inside the input tag, the box will show as selected automatically. Now let's see how checkboxes actually work when combined with labels and form submission. Here in this example, we have three checkboxes, each paired with a label. So users know exactly what each option present. When a user selects a checkbox, only the checked items are sent to the server once the form is submitted. Here, the user selects item 1 and item 3 and then clicks the submit button. The server only receives the data for the selected item with the format name equal to on. That's why we see item number 1 on and item number 3 on being sent, but nothing for item 2 since it wasn't checked. This shows how checkboxes let users select multiple options and the server only processes the choices that are currently checked. Now let's talk about the radio buttons. A radio button is another type of form widget created with the input element, but this time the type attribute is set to radio. Radio buttons are useful when you want the user to choose exactly one option, but you give them several possible choices. The way the browser groups radio button is by their name attribute of multiple radio button. If multiple buttons share the same name, they become part of the same group. The This means the user can only select one option within that group. When the form is submitted, the browser sends the selected radio button's name along with its value. For example, if the option input type equal to radio name equal to movie value equal to ET is chosen, then the server receives movie equal to ET. The key difference between radio buttons and checkbox is that checkboxes allow multiple selections, while radio button limit you to just one choice per group. Now, drop-down menus. A drop-down menu is created using the select element. This element lets user pick one option from a list of predefined choices. It's very useful when you want to save space on a form and still offer multiple options. Inside the select element, we use option tags to define the individual values. Each option is one choice that the user can select. For example, in this slide, we have options for football, baseball, basketball, hockey, and soccer. When a user chooses an option and submit the form, the browser sends the name of the drop-down along with the selected value to the server. So for instance, if baseball is chosen here, the server would receive sports equal to baseball. So in short, the select element creates the menu and the option element defines the choices within that menu. Now moving on to a list box widget. A list box is created using the select element, but here we use the size attribute to specify how many options are shown at once. For example, select size equal to 4 will show 4 options in the list item at a time. If there are more than 4 options, the browser will automatically add the scroll bar so users can scroll through the list. We can also use the multiple attribute, which allows user to select more than one option. On Windows or Mac, this is done by holding down special keys like Control or Command while clicking. However, many users don't know how to select multiple options from a list box. Because of this, in practice, developers often use checkbox instead to make it clear and easier for the users. In the example shown, users can pick from a list of colors like red, orange, blue, or black, and multiple choices can be selected at once if the multiple attribute is set. Now let's talk about buttons in HTML. A button can be created in two main ways. One is by using the button element, and the other is using by the input type element equal to button. The difference is that the button element is more flexible. It can contain both text and images, making it useful when you want to design a more customized button. On the other hand, an input button can only display text, so it's more limited. Both types of button have a type attribute that determines how the button behaves. For example, setting the type to submit will send the form data to server, while setting it to button creates a general purpose button that can be used with JavaScript or other actions. Let's continue with button. When you see the type to button, it's usually meant to be used with JavaScript so that some action is performed when the user clicks it. On the other hand, the submit type creates a button that actually submits the form data to the server. If you don't explicitly set the type, browsers might use their own defaults, which could lead to inconsistent behavior. That's why it's always a best practice to specify the type clearly. In the example, the first button is created using input type button, which simply shows the text home. The second one uses the button element, which allows you to place both an image and style text inside it, giving much more flexibility in how the button should look like. By default, form widgets like button, checkboxes, or text boxes don't always look the same across different browser or operating systems. Each browser applies its own default style. Um, to make them look consistent and more visually appealing, we use CSS styling. CSS allows us to control the color, size, border, and overall design of the widget. If you look at the example here, the button on the left side is a default button in Google Chrome. Plain and simple, but the button on the right side has been styled with CSS, making it more attractive and user friendly. Styling not only improves appearance but can also enhance usability by making buttons and input stand out clearly to the users. Now, a password is a special type of input field in HTML created with input type equal to password. The key difference from a regular text box is that whatever the user types in is hidden with dots or asterisks, so the password can be read on the screen. Modern browsers also provide helpful features such as remembering saved passwords for websites, but it's important to note that forms collecting passwords or other sensitive data should always use the HTTPS server. While HTTP does not encrypt data, HTTPS ensures that the information being submitted is secure during transmission. In the example shown here, the input field includes two additional attributes like size, which controls the visible width of the field, and max length, which limits the maximum number of characters a user can enter. So password fields provide both privacy on screen and access security when paired with HTTPS. The field set element is used when we want to group related form widgets together. It automatically draws a box around the widget, which helps in visually organizing them on the form. For example, in the form shown here, all the radio buttons that allow users to pick their favorite sitcom are grouped inside one field set. This makes it clear to the user that these options belong together. To give a title or caption to the group, we use the legend element. In this case, the legend is favorite sitcom, which explains what the group radio buttons are asking about. So, field set provides structure and grouping, while legend provides context or labeling for that group. So, that's all for chapter 3.3. I will see you guys on chapter 3.4.